Welcome back for Psalm 35. And in Psalm 35, a little bit longer psalm, so commentary will be short, not just for that reason, but also because Psalm 35 is almost a summary of a lot of the psalms that we've seen up to this point from David. Here we have him praying to the Lord, asking for rescue and deliverance from those who oppose him, and again, who oppose him without reason. So two things to say about that is, first of all, in some of these areas, some of these verses, you can see some of the fulfillment ultimately in Christ, as David serves as a type of Christ here. He suffers without cause, and you think of everything that Christ went through. He brought none of that on himself. It was simply the will of the wicked, as Christ willingly went to the cross to suffer for sins he did not commit. But then also just the encouragement for us, as we see David praying for deliverance from his enemies, he always leaves vengeance to God. When he talks about his actions, he always contrasts it with that of his enemies. They're going to treat him poorly, but in these verses you'll see, but I treated them well. When they were sad, I was sad. I was a friend to them, and yet they treated me this way. And so just a neat reminder in that way that we leave judgment and vengeance to the Lord. And as far as it relies on us, depends on us, we live at peace, even with our enemies, as best as we can. So without much further ado, let's read through Psalm 35. Contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take up shield and buckler. Arise and come to my aid. Brandish spear and javelin against those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. May those who seek my life be disgraced and put to shame. May those who plot my ruin be turned back in dismay. May they be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of the Lord driving them away. May their path be dark and slippery, with the angel of the Lord pursuing them, since they hid their net for me without cause, and without cause dug a pit for me. May ruin overtake them by surprise. May the net they hid entangle them. May they fall into the pit to their ruin. Then my soul will rejoice in the Lord and delight in his salvation. My whole being will exclaim, who is like you, O Lord? You rescue the poor from those too strong for them, the poor and needy from those who rob them. Ruthless witnesses come forward. They question me on things I know nothing about. They repay me evil for good and leave my soul forlorn. Yet when they were ill, I put on sackcloth and humbled myself with fasting. When my prayers returned to me unanswered, I went about mourning as though for my friend or brother. I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother. But when I stumbled, they gathered in glee. Attackers gathered against me when I was unaware. They slandered me without ceasing. Like the ungodly, they maliciously mocked. They gnashed their teeth at me. O Lord, how long will you look on? Rescue my life from their ravages, my precious life from these lions. I will give you thanks in the great assembly. Among throngs of people, I will praise you. Let not those gloat over me who are my enemies without cause. Let not those who hate me without reason maliciously wink the eye. They do not speak peaceably, but devise false accusations against those who live quietly in the land. They gape at me and say, aha, aha, with our own eyes we have seen it. O Lord, you have seen this. Be not silent. Do not be far from me, O Lord. Awake and rise to my defense. Contend for me, my God and Lord. Vindicate me in your righteousness, O Lord my God. Do not let them gloat over me. Do not let them think, aha, just what we wanted, or say, we have swallowed him up. May all who gloat over my distress be put to shame and confusion. May all who exalt themselves over me be clothed with shame and disgrace. May those who delight in my vindication shout for joy and gladness. May they always say, the Lord be exalted, who delights in the well-being of his servant. My tongue will speak of your righteousness and of your praises all day long. I guess just one closing thought comes to mind as David asks for deliverance. It's interesting to note that throughout the psalm, he doesn't rejoice in the fact that they are going to suffer, but rather in the Lord's deliverance. So even as we see him asking the Lord to take action, to put these people to shame and put them into confusion, put their plans to confusion, it's never as a direct attack on them per se. It's that David is asking for himself to be delivered. And if this is the way that the Lord has to act for him to be delivered, David's going to rejoice in that. And you say, well, maybe that doesn't sound quite right. As a Christian, as a believer, should I ever pray for the downfall of someone and for the failure of someone? And to that, I would say Jesus teaches us to pray that way. In the Lord's Prayer, whenever we say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, we are very obviously asking him to break and destroy the plans of those who do not want his kingdom to come, who do not want his will to be done, and themselves don't do it. But again, it's not that we are wishing evil upon anyone. We preach the gospel. We want that. We want the same thing that God does. We wish that all would turn from sin and turn to Christ for salvation. And anyone who opposes that plan, we look at God's righteous justice and we rejoice in that. That's all I have on Psalm 35. I'll see you again soon, hopefully, for Psalm 36.